Today I'd like to share with you about the life of William Booth, founder of the Salvation Army. Many of us know about the Salvation Army because of their many thrift stores and the red donation kettles that we see at Christmas time. The Salvation Army is much broader than a charitable organization. It is actually a Christian denomination, much like Baptists and Methodists in their beliefs. They have 15,000 congregations, 1.5 million members across 130 countries. The Salvation Army supports homeless shelters, rehab centers, and humanitarian aid, particularly to developing countries. Its founder, William Booth, was born in Nottingham, England in 1822. And of course, we know the name Nottingham because of the story of Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham. But the sheriff is not the only famous person from that town. William's family was very poor, and his father died when William was just 13. He immediately dropped out of school and went to work as a pawnbroker's assistant. In his early 20s, he became a lay preacher, and at the age of 23, he became a Methodist minister. But it was his early years that would give him lifelong empathy for the poor and shape the direction of his future ministry. In 1853, he met his wife, Catherine, and they married in 1855. Catherine was so intellectually gifted that by the age of 12, she had read the Bible straight through 8 times aloud. It is said her clarity of thought and strong convictions made her an ideal mother of the Salvation Army, and she became one of the most influential women of the 19th century. At age 32 and with a family of 4, William and Catherine moved to London and began their work as independent evangelists. General John Larson of the Salvation Army tells the story of how they started their ministry. In 1865, William Booth was invited to lead a 6-week mission in the East End of London. On Sunday, July 2nd, 1865, he began preaching there in a tent on an unused Quaker burial ground. William describes what happened one evening 3 weeks later. When I saw those masses of poor people, so many of them evidently without God or hope in the world, my whole heart went out to them. I walked back to our West End home and said to my wife, "Oh, Kate, I have found my destiny." And together they founded the Christian mission to minister to the East End. But their destiny was not the East End of London. Their ultimate destiny was the world. And July 2nd is now annually celebrated as the Salvation Army's birthday. The ministry had 2 great purposes: the salvation of souls and the helping of the poor. This was the mission field to which God had called William and Catherine. Their ministry started slowly with small growth. After 13 years, there were 35 full-time missionaries, or missioners as they were called, serving in 29 stations in Britain. Then, after the name of the ministry was changed to the Salvation Army, there was an explosion of growth to the extent that in the following 8 years, the ministry grew to 2,260 missionaries, now called Salvation Army officers, with more than 1,000 stations, now called Salvation Army Corps. And now General Booth had become nationally known. With the title of the Salvation Army, the pastoral leadership are referred to with military titles like commander, general, majors, and lieutenants, and they often wear uniforms. William and Catherine Booth worked together tirelessly for social reform and social action. Following Catherine's death from cancer at age 61, William published a book entitled In Darkest England and the Way Out. This book caught the attention of most of England as it became a bestseller. It was graphic in its depiction of the living conditions of the poor at that time. Think Charles Dickens. William describes how the poor should be at least treated as well as the horses that pull the carriages of the day. He stated this: "When he is down, he is helped up. And while he lives, he has food, shelter, and work." In addition to being world-renowned evangelists and social reformers, William and Catherine Booth were also outstanding parents. They had 8 children, 3 boys and 5 girls, all of whom lived to adulthood and all of whom became Salvation Army officers. One of Salvation Army's ministry tools that it used to proclaim the gospel is music. And this is the part of the story that I really relate to as a trombone player. In 1878, Charles Fry and his three sons formed the first brass band and began a tradition that continues today. Here is a picture of the Fry family, and here's a picture of the current Washington, D.C. National Capital Band of the Salvation Army. Of course, through the years, many other instruments and voices have joined in the proclamation of the gospel using music, but brass bands remain a foundation. Before we close, I thought I would share and let us hear from William Booth himself. Here's an audio recording of William speaking about his passion. I don't know when it was recorded, but I suspect very late 1800s or early 1900s.
What shall we do? Content ourselves by singing a hymn, offering a prayer, or giving a little good advice? No. 10,000 times no. We will pity them, feed them, reclaim them, employ them. Perhaps we shall fail with many, quite likely, but our business is to help them all the same, and that in the most practical, economical, and Christ-like manner. So let us haste to the rescue.
So let us haste to rescue. His call was clear and his heart was passionate. After William Booth died in 1912, 150,000 people filed by his casket, and 35,000, including Queen Mary, attended his funeral. It was a remarkable end for a man born into poverty and who worked in the midst of poverty his whole life. All of us should be so blessed to meld together a definitive calling from God with such passion and determination. Be sure to check in every Tuesday and Thursday for new staff devotions. See you next time.